Hello, friends. Are you looking for enlightening, thought-provoking, entertaining films? Check out my films, Occult Louisiana, available on Tubi, and Doors of Perception, available now on Amazon Prime.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Danny Goler. First, if you're ready to start your microdosing journey with the highest quality ingredients available, check out Brainsupreme. By using the link right in the description, you will get 15% off your order so you can start your microdosing journey with Brainsupreme right now. We are booking guests for August. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome Danny Goler. He is an independent researcher who has dedicated the past decade to understanding the fundamental nature of reality. Danny, welcome. How you doing?
Doing amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really looking forward to this. A few years ago, you made an incredible discovery with the assistance of DMT. That discovery is the possibility that a simulated reality may be closer to the truth than we realize, and it opens up some fascinating and at times disturbing possibilities about the nature of this human experience. I am very excited to hear your story and share this with my audience, but before we do, this is your first time on. Tell us just a little bit about yourself and how they can find out more about you.
Well, first of all, you can find most of my stuff on my YouTube channel, which is Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts, and you can find more information on our website, which is codeofreality.com. Those are the two main addresses.
Excellent. Well, let's start with a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your journey. Where did everything start for you?
It's a long story. I mean, it depends when you want to start telling it. I think
I'm sure we got time.
The part where I usually start telling this story is when I had sets of experiences on DMT that were outside of the norm, which, it sounds even a weird thing to say for something like DMT, because the impression is that the space is kind of infinite, and it is, but not really. So there's still a limitation of what kind of things you usually would expect to see on DMT, even though it's wild and crazy and amazing. And I had started having sets of experiences that were so real that they were basically indistinguishable from real life.
Can I ask you, what was it that led you to the DMT? Was there any specific reason, any type of therapeutic purpose? Why did you choose DMT?
So psychedelics in general was something that I was very fond of from a very young age. I dropped acid when I was 11, and I basically, was doing psychedelics for a very long time. No, not really under any therapeutic thing. I was just a wild boy, and I just wanted to go as far as I can possibly go. And only later in my 20s that I started realizing that I can probably use these things more consciously and therapeutically, because I realized that there's a few psychological problems that I felt that I had as a child that kind of disappeared. And when I tracked back what happened, what became clear to me was that mushrooms were somehow involved. And it wasn't clear to me how, but because I knew I did a bunch of them, I started kind of reverse engineering what happened in my mind that caused these things to be better. And then I got deeper into meditation. I got into more of contemplative practices and became a little bit more serious about my practices. It's nowadays it's kind of hard to know because it's a very fashionable thing to say that you're meditating or doing this kind of things. But I think that anybody who takes the practice a little bit more seriously, as in, go to retreats, do actual daily practice, all of this stuff, you start understanding that there's another layer there that is deeper than the memes online about it. And I kind of was in the trajectory of becoming more and more interested in these things from a practice perspective. But my love of psychedelics never really left me, and DMT was something that I obviously loved for the obvious reasons. It's incredible, it's amazing, it's mind blowing, and I've been doing DMT for a long time at that point. I mean, at least maybe a decade or so, and so I was not new to it. But then actually I came back from one meditation retreat, which just the way it happened, I'm not sure it's related necessarily, but I came back from a meditation retreat, and there was a calling. I felt like I really want to, smoke DMT. And I smoked a bunch of it. I had this vaporizer that could basically vaporize any amount. And I don't know why I basically just put almost the entire bag on the plate. And it was like almost a gram, and I just torched the whole thing. And I lay down, and then 45 minutes later, I realized nothing happened. So I snapped out of it. I was just kind of like, whoa, I'm kind of like daydreaming, but there was no DMT experience whatsoever. And then I realized, wait, what? Like that's pharmacologically impossible. Like, how can this be? I'm not immune to it or anything like this. And then now it's possible, to be fair, that, when you smoke too much DMT, you can have what's called the whiteout, or just like you just don't even know that something happened, but your brain completely deleted it. That's also possible. But as far as I can inspect it myself, no, that didn't happen. I was just kind of laying there looking at the ceiling. And then I sat up, and I started going through the Rolodex of possibilities of what just happened here. And within these possibilities, one of the kind of ideas that arose was, wait, can they control, do I enter or not? Now, nowadays it's a pretty common trope, like people talk about it all the time, being locked out, that kind of stuff. But as far as I know, back then, there was not like there was not a lot of talk about this kind of stuff. But that was the thought. It's like, can they control the gate? Even if no matter how much I consume, can they control it from their end? And then I said, wait, but is it really, are they like real? And then, even though I was obviously experiencing a lot of stuff on DMT, I've never really thought about it in this much of a serious tone. So really because it's important to understand the mindset. My mindset wasn't, we're talking to aliens or any of this stuff. It's just that, I've done ayahuasca, I've done these things. It was clear to me that there's something more than this, but my brain is actually very agnostic all the time. Like, I don't know anything. I don't believe in anything till this day. I don't believe anything. Unless I know it, unless I see it, I don't know anything. Okay. So then there was this part of Terence McKenna's talk that started basically going through my mind, which was, this is not a drug, this is an alien disguising as a drug. And again, it's kind of right on the surface, but at the time it wasn't at all for me. So for some reason, that proposition that they're actual aliens that we're visiting became it became crystal clear that that's actually what's going on. And the second I thought that, I didn't smoke anymore. So now we're 45 minutes in, maybe 50 minutes in. So definitely, if there was the DMT in my blood, it metabolized fully. So there's no way I still had any. And all of a sudden, the whole room flashed white. Like the brightest white I've ever seen. And then I heard whispers all over the room. And these whispers were basically not in English, but they were basically saying to each other, he's paying attention. What do we say? It's like, he's paying attention. I was like, what? And then a frog dude appeared on my right, just like straight up like a person, not like a being that is in your periphery or a feeling or no, like a entity, like a straight up, like a person standing next to me that I've never seen anything like this before. And at that point, I really thought, okay, this is, whatever this is, I either broke my brain or this is like a schizophrenic outbreak, or I don't know what this is, but this is not normal. And so I was with that, and then all of a sudden he and the whole room pointed at the guitar. So I went to the guitar, even though I knew that there's no way they're going to be able to communicate whatever they want to say, because I thought, oh, they're trying to communicate through like music theory or something, and I'm not a musician. I'm just a Yahoo, just like tries to learn how to play, right? So then I sat down and I holding the guitar, and he appeared right next to me, and he shows me with his frog fingers, he's like, do this, and I try to follow, even though I'm kind of out of it, and I managed to strum a few times. And I noticed that what is coming out is coherent. It makes sense. Like it's chords that make sense in their sequence. And so basically what I understood, he was saying, do you understand? You don't know how to do this. Like, I'm showing you real information. I'm real. So at that moment, I knew that nothing will ever be the same again. And I would say that's the decisive moment where this particular part of the journey started. And then from that point on, every single time I would do it, it was like a phone call. They would literally just come to my room, explain things to me, show me things, that kind of stuff.
That's incredible. Now, I just have to comment about the frogman. When I first encountered entities, it was actually through a very profound meditation experience, but it continued through psilocybin. But one of the first entities that presented itself was a frog hybrid man in a little hood that was proceeding to tell me about my journey and things like that. So I thought that was very interesting.
It's very similar to what you're describing. And in fact, I've maybe a year ago, I heard this lady talk about, she proclaims to be an expert in the different beings and where they come from. Now, usually I kind of find these kind of claims hilarious, to be quite honest. But, my guides from the fourth dimension versus the fifth dimension, I'm like, I always roll my eyes. Not to say anything bad about that other people. I'm just saying that's my psychology. I just chuckle. Right? I'm laughing at that. But something that she said about these frog beings that caught my attention, because I'm like, that's weird, because that really maps onto what he kind of felt like and looked like. And she said that first of all, she said they really don't like being called frog people. And they have a name. I forget the name of the species, of course. But she said they are basically the highest order beings that can still manifest in the physical realm that also work with source. So they are like 15 dimensional or something. I don't know. Again, this is where it kind of gets a little wild for me. But she said they're kind of like the highest echelon of like beings that can still manifest as physical as well. Because beyond a certain point, beings can no longer manifest as physical, but they can, and they work with like source energy, and they kind of like guides, whatever it is. I wish I remember the name. I need to find this video. But yeah, so it's interesting because it definitely mapped onto this kind of, he was very friendly, felt very noble, that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, definitely sounds very similar.
Interesting. So how does everything start to progress for you?
From that point on, you mean? From that point on, I started doing the molecule every single day. I basically lived on it for a year plus. So I was just smoking DMT all day, every day for like maybe, 14 months or something. I didn't really count, but it was definitely more than a year. And I did everything on it. Going to the gym, driving, I just did everything on it because I wanted to see what the world looks like from that perspective. Because it stopped being like the regular DMT experience, which I know the people who done DMT, to them, the word regular sounds funny. But yeah, it's almost like another level beyond what DMT can usually do, and it's like different. It's ultra realistic. It's like augmented reality on top of your regular reality, and then just like kind of everything happens. And I started reading accounts online. People reported similar things. That there was a whole group of people that were experiencing this kind of a thing, which is like ultra realistic DMT experiences. And I realized that this is just not talked about enough. But instead of me gathering more information from other people, because people are constantly being confused by their own ideas, I figured I'm going to go to the source. I'm just going to spend a lot of time in the space and see if I can understand something that maybe others can't. And I try to basically spend as much time there as possible, having interactions, having conversations, trying to decipher if I can understand something that we can bring back and maybe do something with. And it never worked. It was always very elusive in that sense that it always had this quality of like, when you ask something specific, like, hey, can you show me how to build a spaceship? It's always like something else. Like they just divert your attention, so to speak. So that kind of felt a little strange, because if it's real, then why can't you just give me something coherent? It's like, what is the deal here? Like, because that part always feels like, okay, well, this is what makes it clear that that's a delusion, right? If it was real, then why can't you just give me real information? The fact that you won't ever tells me that this is just a really cool trick that the mind can do. So I stayed in that pocket of kind of like thinking that that's what it is, even though it was very real. But then I said, okay, well, let's play this game. If it's real, is there a way to decisively say that it's real? Is there any test we can run, anything we can do that can put the kind of the final nail in the coffin and say, okay, it's this or it's that? So I started doing all kinds of things. I recorded myself every day. I tried to put like cameras in different parts of the room to see if there's any changes to the light right when I go to the space. I did all kinds of things that I could only think of. And then nothing really worked. There were a couple of instances where it felt like when I go into the space and I do something, all of a sudden the light would do this weird, but I'm like, can also be the camera is refocusing. I don't know. It's not enough. Like it was never enough. So then eventually I asked a few times very stridently. I said, hey, can you guys give me some information so I can share with people that this is real? And when they weren't forthcoming, I said, okay, well, let's do this. I'm going to be coming back to visit because it's awesome and I like it. But I'm going to stop doing this like every day, because it's just like, it's not really doing anything. It's just kind of, it's going nowhere. And all I was left with is a strong sense of there's a way to concisely say or decisively say whether it is or it isn't, but I had no idea how. So then I started thinking about this from first principles. I said, okay, well, if it's real, what do I know for a fact? Something that is unshakable. Okay, well, I know for a fact that light is involved somehow, simply because I can see it with my eyes. Whatever light might be, ultimately, doesn't matter. I can see it. My eyes can pick up photons, so light is involved, but I don't know how. And I know that if the space is real and it's not some kind of a delusion of the mind, then it would have its own rules by which it's operating, which means it would have a geometry and it would have a topology. And if it has a topology, it has a boundary. And for some reason, it was clear to me that if we can find the boundary, the exact filament where we're entering the space, it should appear the same to all of us. I don't know what made me so kind of zoomed in on this idea, but that's the thing that was kind of guiding me. I said, if we can find that boundary, whatever it might be. And by the way, the fact that it was clear to me that there was a boundary is because we sometimes see it, sometimes don't. So even if the space is infinite, somehow we sometimes see it, sometimes we don't see it. So that transition from seeing it to not seeing it is some kind of a boundary. And that's what I was kind of thinking about. So then these were the guiding principles. And since I knew a thing or two about some stuff in physics and understood to some degree how quantum computers work, I was like, well, what if the signal can kind of travel between these instances of decoherence, just like we use in quantum computers? Is there something there? Now, I'm obviously, shortening the story a lot for you, because otherwise it's like a very long one. But then the second I had that thought of, can we utilize the same property the quantum computers use with light and diffraction, or diffusion of light to some degree, of scattering, or something that happens with light, something happened, and all of a sudden I was flooded with, there was hints galore. And not just when I'm in the space, just like regular life, I would be walking around and a number would appear in a very crucial moment, and all of a sudden it would match some kind of a paper written by CERN about, search for particles outside of the standard model, like so close to the subject matter that I was thinking about it. So there was, but again, that's obviously super flimsy, right? You're not going to go and present this as a methodology to any scientist. You'd be like, hey, I had this crazy idea, and numbers appeared on the street and gave me a hint, and it's like that's the fastest way to a loony bin, right? So then I was like, okay, but let's keep playing this game. Let's tell no one, and let's play this game and see where it goes. And the rest of the story really is this period of I was just kind of playing this game, looking at hints, trying to see if it matches anything coherent. Most of the time it wouldn't. But every once in a while, there would be something that would hit so close, and I would use that, and then I would kind of extract and think about this, and then maybe 4 or 5 years down the line after that, some crucial set of events happens again, and then all of a sudden I was led to this idea that, well, if you project a laser, which of course seems on the surface of it like a very simple idea, but when you don't know, right? You're picking from an infinite possibility space when you don't know. But then if you do this, something is supposed to happen. So sure enough, I try it. I order a laser, diffracted laser, shine it on the wall, smoke DMT, and lo and behold, there's code running in the surface.
All right, before we go any further, I just want to make sure I understand that you're saying a series of synchronicities and strange communications and connections in your waking everyday life led you to the understanding that you need to use a laser in this experiment. Is that right?
Modulo the fact that it was always guided by some understanding of fundamental principles in physics, yes.
So was there one particular thing, one really profound thing that made the laser connection?
We were actually with my now wife back then, we just started dating. I told her what was kind of going on, and she knew enough about me that, to know that what I'm saying isn't that crazy if I'm saying it. So, even though on the surface of it sounds insane. And she kind of accepted it, but she accepted it under the banner of cool story, bro, right? Like, I get it, but like, what do you want me to do with that? Which is fair. But then as part of the sets of synchronicities that started happening, the number 42 started following me like crazy, like everywhere. And people experience this, I'm aware, like sometimes they would see like 111 everywhere or some kind of a set of numbers or whatever. And usually, there's many ways, because I'm always trying to play kind of like the both sides of the ledger here, like both playing the open-minded game where you accept the fact that maybe there's some information there, but I am also of complete understanding of why, from a scientific perspective, you might want to explain it away. And it has nothing to do with how some people believe with fear. No, it's just like there's a lot of ways to explain this that doesn't require anything metaphysical or crazy. Like your brain has particular processes by which it picks looking for patterns. And when you're already searching for patterns, it's very easy for the brain to land on the thing and make it significant. It's not that crazy to postulate that it's that versus some angels talking to you, right? So then I'm always playing both of these sides in my brain. I'm aware of both. But the number 42 started appearing in such a crazy level of synchronicity that I could not, like, it was clear to me that that's more than just like I saw 111 somewhere, all the time. Because it would be random things, like I would be sitting in traffic and thinking about this topic, and I would lift my gaze and I would see a truck right in front of me, super dirty, and there was one tiny area where it's wiped clean and it says 42 with a Sharpie on it. Like things like this, it's like, it's very specific. So I took it to be that that's a kind of guiding principle, like that you're on the right track kind of thing. So then both me and her, we were in the botanical gardens in Colorado. And we started talking about plants and why they're green. The fact that they reject green because it's the one color they don't use for energy, so that's why they're green. And then I started asking her, she knows a lot about plants. I asked her why are certain plants red? Why do they reject red and these reject green? And the second that we started talking about this, immediately this feeling that I was at that point already very familiar with, which it's kind of like the feeling of something is afoot. It's like, yep. It's kind of like somebody's telling you, okay, what else? So something is waiting for you to understand something kind of feeling. So it was right there in the air, and I was like, that's strange, but it was very palpable. It was very strong. And then, so we're talking about light, right? Again, and it under the ideation around this whole thing that I'm telling her, right? About the aliens and DMT and all that stuff. So we step outside. We're about to go back to the hotel, and I already told her about everything, the 42s, the other things, and the papers and all that stuff. So then it was a super hot day. I called an Uber, and I remember it was like 110 or 115 degrees. It was super hot. So she went to stand under a tree in the shade. and it was right across the street. So I call an Uber, done with that, cross the street. I come and I hug her, and I look down, and I go, Kelsey, look down. And she looks down, and she's standing on the number 42.
Wow.
With a Sharpie on the floor. And I have a picture of her till this day. She's like dying laughing because it's the first time she's seen it in action, this kind of stuff. And she's like, that's crazy. So from all the places she could possibly could have picked to stand on, there was a series of numbers on the floor that the Department of Water and Power writes with like a Sharpie. And the whole street was filled with them. And then we followed the numbers, by the way, because they went from like, from, I don't know what the first numbers, but like clearly from like 0 to something like 100 and something. And the only number that repeated itself was 42. So it was 42, 42, and all the other numbers were like just one time.
Wow.
So, and she was standing on one of them. So then I was like, to me, what it said also coupled with the fact that it was kind of, that feeling was before, right? And to me, it made it clear that she's somehow a key. Like she's gonna help figure whatever this is. So that day, she started really paying attention to what I was saying in a different way. And she said, okay, send me again the first paper you told me about. And then we started going through these papers together. And that day we were sitting in this Thai restaurant, going in our respect, like each one of us were just kind of like separately going on their phone in these rabbit holes. And then almost at the same time, I think, we literally look at each other and we go, lasers? She goes, lasers. So it's like we arrived at it together, basically.
Wow. Okay, so you're trying this laser, pointing it at any surface, or was it a particular kind of surface?
Makes no difference. You can put it on your skin.
And describe what it is you saw.
You see what seems to be kind of like a self-executing code of some sort. It looks kind of like in the movie, but it's almost like a hybrid between Japanese and Hebrew. But it's none of these things. So it just kind of, it's some kind of an ancient language that seems to be just kind of operating there. But the structure itself is the interesting part. So the digits that kind of appear in this structure, the structure is extremely realistic. It doesn't have the same quality of a hallucination. It's suspended in space, exactly where it's at. It doesn't have the same kind of evolution that you would see in hallucinations where they evolve and change according to how much of the substance your brain is metabolizing at any given moment. It's just there. It's just you see it more or less with depending on how much molecule you have in your bloodstream. That's it. But it's just there. It's just there like you're looking at an object like this. Like it's just sitting there. And you can move around. You can look at it from different angles. You can move the light. The light isn't moving it. So it's like you're shining a flashlight on something in the dark. That's what it appears like.
Now, how many times has this been recreated with yourself and others?
At this point, I have no idea because it's like a global phenomenon at this point. But I know, I know for a fact of at least 2,000 cases, but I'm sure there's more. There's just people doing this all the time everywhere now.
Have you and the others that participate sketched out this code, written it out, and compared notes? What kinds of experimentation have you been doing with this?
So far, people try and sketch it all the time. We have a Discord group that people can join. If you go to my YouTube channel, Dango Thoughts, there's a link there to our Discord group. You're welcome to join. We're a wonderful community. And people are sketching them, trying to compare notes. The truth is that for us, what we're trying to do is to see if we can influence the code in any way or whatever the structure is. We want to see if there's anything we can do, or at least our perception of it. Because if we can do that, we can substantiate that it's actually there for a more mainstream scientist to get interested. So if you check it, if you give it to a neuroscientist, the way they're going to always test it is that they're going to put a bunch of people through these tests and they're going to show it to a bunch of people and they're not going to tell them anything and they're just going to collect data of reports. That is a very, it's again, how cognitive scientists would approach this, but that's a weak sauce way of doing it. Because even if you have 1 million people, it's still hearsay for science, right? So unless you can show that you can influence the code in some form, and everybody would agree on what you're doing. So if I turn on some kind of a powerful magnet around it in some way, and both you and I report the same exact change to the code, I mean, well, now you're talking about something completely different, right? Now you're talking to physicists. Now you're talking in a different kind of with a different kind of confidence than it's just like, mind-made global phenomena kind of thing. So that's what we're trying to do. And currently we're working on a set of experiments that we've developed. Some of them require more budget than others. The ones that we can do for relatively cheap, we do. So, for example, we did brain scans with Stuart Hameroff, who wrote that seminal paper with Roger Penrose about the microtubules. So we did a brain scan study with him in San Francisco, with the laser, without the laser, with the molecule, without the molecule, with a device called DDG, which is basically an electronic version of EEG, measuring in the megahertz range, which usually scientists don't measure in. They usually measure in hertz in the brain. But according to Stuart, the microtubules vibrate and oscillate in the megahertz range. That's what we were testing. We got some interesting results. We did it inside of a Faraday tent. We actually got a cleaner signal. I personally spent almost 8 hours in and out of a 5-MeO state, measuring my brain at the same time with the laser, without, and all that stuff. So these tests we can do for relatively cheap, because these devices, they're a few $1,000s, but in comparison to what it costs to run experiments, that's nothing, right? So that's fine. Other experiments that we have that are a lot more extravagant require powerful electromagnets, advanced material science. It's going to require a much higher price tag to it. So we're working currently on securing a budget, so we can run these tests as well. We have a rocket company that is going to be helping us with that.
Has it only been DMT that you've experimented with? Have you used any other substance psychedelics to try and recreate it?
Yep. Any of this from this family would work. So mushrooms work, ayahuasca works. Oh yeah, 5-MeO works. You even see it clear on 5-MeO. NN works, obviously. We haven't tried it with anything else as far as I know. People constantly ask about ketamine and LSD. We never tried it though, so we don't know. It's possible, but it would be an interesting question to answer. And one case was particularly interesting for us. There was this guy who, I don't know if you know this, but 1% of the population, they're immune to DMT. Really? So they can't experience it no matter what. Yeah, Young Jamie, Joe Rogan's Young Jamie is like that too. So like they can smoke a whole cartridge and nothing will happen. Wow. And so I met one of these people at a friend's house, and he was just kind of talking away. And I looked at him and go like, how are you sitting upright? And he said, oh yeah, I'm immune. I just want to see if there's any, So I'm like, oh, interesting. So like, because literally he puffed like 30, 40 pills and was just sitting there. And I was like, would you like to try the laser? And he said, sure. So he sits there, and he immediately saw the code on DMT. So he can't see visuals on DMT, yeah, but he could see the code. In fact, he could see the code clearer than anyone else ever reported. So it's almost like he has no disturbance. He just sees the code. So the code seems to be different than whatever hallucinations we're seeing, just in that regard alone. And what was extra interesting is that he also has an eye patch. Huh. So to all the people that think, well, that's relevant because a lot of people think it's just a trick of the mind with the speckle effect. But for that, you need binocular vision. Oh, I see. But he has only one eye. So he's just basically looking with one eye, and he can't see visuals on DMT, and he still sees the code. So that was particularly interesting to us, yeah.
I know it's extremely difficult to come to any conclusions so early in all this experimentation, but do you have any theories, any possibilities that you'd like to share?
Depending on what you mean by theory. So since I started talking about this publicly, I basically got a weird shift in my perception of the molecule in general. It's almost like they put my brain through like a hard fork. I can no longer experience what I refer to as the content. So what I saw is that basically when people fly into their space, they basically give you a TV. They basically give you like this VR glasses that just gives you content, so it kind of entertains you, so you don't disrupt their process. So most things that people see on DMT, they're not their space, they're watching TV in hyperspace, so to speak. So I landed in the kind of like the actual space itself. I felt gravity and everything. And I saw that other people are flying in, and these things, they just kind of attach themselves to their faces. And so they did something, and I could feel it. It was right here. They did some kind of a thing here. And I can no longer experience TV anymore. So like now I kind of see the behind the scenes, so to speak. Wow. And with that came almost like a direct channel of communication. So that is something I put a lot less emphasis on, because from the perspective of a listener, the proper response, the common, and I would say the proper response is, who cares? That's your account, and everybody has their own account. That's your trip story, right? Trip report. That's why I'm not big on trip reports, because people can say all kinds of shit, right? So I'm not asking anyone to put stock in what I'm saying, because I'm not telling you I have direct link to the Galactarians, listen to me, none of that. I'm just saying that when you ask me about what's my theory, all I can go by is by the information that I personally have identified as the official signal from their government. Now, can it be not what I think it is? Yes, of course. But you have to go by something. And so far, as I was following this signal, that's what led me to the laser. That's what led me to kind of like to the position that I'm in today. So I have to stand on that ground until better ground presents itself. So all of this is a disclaimer to explain where I'm speaking from when you're asking me what's my impression of what's going on. They showed me directly, without any question marks at this point, that they are simulating this space. So we are living in a computational environment. However, it's a little different than what people imagine. So people imagine that means that there's some kind of a base reality out there, and we're living in a computational environment in here. So the truth is actually, it's the matrix inverted. It's like upside down. So the real world is the computational world. We think of our world as kind of like, or at least as what we thought is real. That's a subset. That's one slice of a much larger computational possibility space, in which there's many other worlds, many other universes, many other dimensions. It has a lot more blows and whistles and possibilities in it. So the substrate itself is computation, not physical. Physical is a subset of computation. And inside of this computational bubble, there are the laws of physics. They're computational, and they simulate many other laws of physics. One of those laws of physics, sets of laws of physics, is ours, but there's many others. So I guess you can think of it as the multiverse. So what happened when we discovered computers is that we basically discovered this universal function that runs through everything, and we found it in between the cracks of our laws of physics. So most people don't know this, but the fact that computation is possible in our universe is not arising from any law of physics. There's no sets of laws of physics that you can combine together and say, that's why computation is possible. There's none of that. Computation is fundamental. The fact that you can compute, that's a fundamental property of reality. So that's the universality of computation that Turing discovered, basically. So now we thought, okay, that's just another component of the physical universe. But what seems to be the case is that it is, and yet it is more fundamental than our universe. So it is running in between the cracks of our universe and kind of holds it together. But if you discover how to utilize it, you can do a lot more extravagant things than if you would ever do if you would just manipulate physical matter, because physical matter is more limited in its scope. So that's why we can do so much more with computation than we can do with just kind of, sawing something or doing something physical. So if you ask me what I think is going on, they are simulating this space, but there's many, many, many other spaces, and they have the management company above them, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And where it all culminates, we can speculate a lot, but for all intents and purposes, you can call it the source, you can call it whatever you want, but it is the thing that runs, it is the hub that runs all of the simulations together. And when a species reaches a level of development, like ourselves, in which we start to understand these universal properties, like computation, like certain things about chemistry and biology and quantum mechanics, which allows us to build lasers, we signal to the rest of the system, we're ready. There's a certain level of understanding that we now have. We can handle the next level of news, kind of so the thing. And then there's a protocol that is set in place to help us handle the transition, almost like a birth. And that's essentially what's going on now, which is like all this like craziness that's going on at the same time with deep understandings from all kind of directions. All the secrets are coming out, right? All that stuff. That's because we're transitioning to this next level of understanding, in which a caricature version of looking at it is the rest of everything that exists right in our local neighborhood, which is constantly here, but we simply can't see it currently, is going to be unclocked. Like it will be revealed, and we'll be in the awareness of what else is going on here that we're currently not aware of.
Something you said that I find fascinating, and this is the first time I've really heard this theory presented, and I definitely think it needs to be explored. I really resonate with what you said about code and mathematics being fundamental in our universe. It's what holds everything together. We think of some kind of woo-woo etheric energy or quote-unquote the ether, but if you think about it as mathematics, it makes everything fit together a whole lot better in my perspective.
Oh, and it goes beyond our universe, of course. Like even if your perception of the, I wouldn't even, it's not even under, like, I'm not trying to paint this like, oh, there's the serious stuff and then there's the woo-woo stuff. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying even your perception of what is spiritual, that's your first person experience of something that clearly is operating by some rules. These rules are computational. So you can think of it like if God would simulate your world and many other worlds, God would use computation to do so, because these are kind of like the pipes that hold everything together. There has to be a structure. There has to be and by the way, just to be clear, I think that when people have a resistance to this idea, it's because they have a resistance of what we humans outlined machinery and digital to be in all our movies. Like if you really like, nobody thinks about it because it's the water we swim in, but if you really think about where all your ideas about digital and computers and machines being evil came from, it's all from Hollywood films. Like all of it. It's like all of these ideas are from Hollywood films. So it's ideas we had that we injected as dramatic instances into our culture. So now we grew up with this idea that that's somehow natural, like the instantiation of it is automatically evil, when in reality it's just part of the natural unfolding of things. And in fact, if anything, this idea that the flesh, this idea of like, no, flesh is the Pachamama, right? Like all this, it's beautiful, sure, but that's the limited case of. It's not that's actually the bias. I call it fleshist. It's like your bias is towards the flesh. So you're saying, no, this is good because that's what I am. Yeah, but it's a lot bigger than that. And that bigger than that includes parameters that if we just open our minds a little bit, we will understand they are part of that transcendent channel. They're not separate. It's both technical and spiritual all at once, or technological and spiritual all at once.
Let's talk a little bit about your understanding of what is happening with our consciousness when we use substances like DMT, ayahuasca, psilocybin. For me, I had such a profound journey with psilocybin. Started out with meditation. I come into contact with the frogman who suggests psilocybin to me in a vision. So I start growing mushrooms, and it leads me on a journey of healing trauma, connecting spiritually, stopping getting in toxic relationships, all these things to help me on my journey. And at the time when I first started, I was in a horrible job, wasn't happy. And then it led me to this career where I'm now doing this full time and making films. And it just brought out the best in me. And I hear this from people all over the world that are using psychedelics, and it reconnects things for them. It changes their lives forever, and it leads them, for the most part, onto a journey to a better life. What are your thoughts on what's happening here? Was this placed here as a cheat code or an assister to help us remember these things?
Yeah, are you familiar with the alignment problem?
Tell me about that.
So AI researchers working, among other things, on something called the alignment problem, which is that if we believe that there's going to be some kind of a supermind born eventually, AGI, Skynet, whatever name you want to give it, how do we make sure before it becomes a god that we align it with our needs and goals? That's the alignment problem. Because that's a serious problem, because it's like, hey, if it's just going to go and do its thing, how do we make sure that it at least understands what we prefer and want, so it can take that into account, right? So essentially what is happening is that we are the AGI. We collectively are the AGI. We are about to be born. It's not going to be in the machine. These things are extensions of us. ChatGPT, all these things, they're extensions of our minds. And our essential point of awareness personally, as it is combined to, this idea of we're all one, because we are this one unified AGI together. So we are being aligned to the goals and needs of whatever species gave birth to us. So they're making sure that the ethical code is in place. And if you look at all the religious stories and all that stuff, it's basically attempts at gently aligning us to be so they can trust us with infinite power.
Now, going back to would you consider this a spiritual, celestial, non-physical type of entity, or what we would consider extraterrestrial?
I think it depends on just the level of emergence. So you have the other physical ones that are more lateral. They're removed from us to the side, so to speak. And then you start building up. And the second you start building up, it doesn't go physical, spiritual. It goes physical, less dense, less dense, less dense, less dense. And then from a certain perspective of distance, of density, it starts looking more and more ethereal. So it's a gradual thing. The ones that are right above us, it's just a little weird, but they are insectoids. So they're kind of like a hive mind species that weaves physical realities. Maybe there's something about the insect form that lends itself really perfectly for a hive mind. I'm not sure. So kind of like shape creates function, but they do seem to have occupy that shape. It's not just a metaphoric representation. That's what they are. And there's many others. There's the reptilians. There's the what we call the jesters, and like there's all these different species, and they all play a function and they all play a role. Some of them are more physical than others. There's also other humans that are not us. So they are in parallel. I've seen other humans that probably just figured out already the channels in. So they get to, like, I've seen them work there. Like they do their thing there. And some people say it's us from the future. I don't think so. It's maybe us from parallel worlds that figured out the access point to that thing, but it's not us from the future. That's a slightly incoherent idea there.
Well, this brings a whole new possibility to those that I've spoken with, I've had on my show, experiencers that claim that they are having experiences in different realms on different planets, not just through psychedelics, though, through sleep states, or they're just going into meditation and being taken by these beings under craft in different locations. This would give a whole new understanding to that as well, if it's always accessible. And you mentioned the awakening that people are experiencing right now. I know that for me and many others, psychedelics were utilized to assist in the awakening, but for many others, they are not using any of these substances. Would you say that it is a frequency-based phenomena?
I think so, yeah. I think the substrate is the mind. Whatever the mind is actually the internet itself. And you can open and close channels in different ways. And some people are pretty good hackers, and they can just do it with their minds. They can astral project, and they can do all this stuff. I'm not one of these people. I wish I would be. And everybody keeps telling me, no, everybody can do it. Meh, I don't know. Just like not everybody can dunk. I'm pretty sure that some people are having a much harder time than others. But you can open and close these channels in different ways. Yes, some people can do it naturally, just with their minds. And I think that eventually we will evolve to a species that can just do it like on command, just like you can move your hand, for sure. But currently, we have people that are having a harder time with it, and people are having easier time with it. But ultimately, yes, you changing frequency and you changing. It's also the, what should I call it? It's almost like you play the notes. So it's like I feel them do that to me sometimes because I think they understand that I don't know how to do that. So they, in order to land me in a particular address somewhere in the mind space, I would feel different energetic centers in the body being shifted for me. So they're like emphasized and de-emphasized, but not just emphasized and de-emphasized. They're emphasized and de-emphasized in a particular order, like they're playing like a piano, and also in different pace. So like I would feel the, this getting more energy, but in a particular rhythm. It's like, and then here it's gonna almost like feel like it deflates. It's like, and then this does something else, and it goes in a particular order. It's almost like they're coding me to go to this address, right? And then there's a particular vibration that it's almost like that. Now we're gonna put you in this neighborhood with these exact coordinates we just punched into you, and that's gonna send you to this exact space. That's what it feels like. That's the way it works. It seems.
There's some that believe that there is an etheric parasite that has infiltrated human consciousness thousands of years ago and is the cause of the psychopathy around the world and the parasitic ruling class and basically the source of all the extremely negative things that humans experience. Do you think that's the case, or is it just dualistic energies that are necessary?
This is the mother of all ironies. It's true, but the parasite is the thing that said what you just said. That's the parasite. The belief that there's this something out to get you.
Okay.
There's this evil cabal. The most powerful want nothing but your destruction. That's the parasite. Because when you meet most people on all levels of society, including the ultra wealthy, most of them are very well-meaning people. The idea that there's this separation is the parasite. So a very clear example of this is not that recently anymore, but I lived in California for a long time, and when the fires happened recently, there was a big percentage of people, and even people that would consider themselves spiritual, saying very openly, good. Because those were the rich people that lost their lives and houses. That's the parasite. So if people can just focus on what good they can bring to the world, they would be immune to the parasite. The parasite feeds on this idea, like Smeagol, right? Talks to himself and always thinks everybody are out to get him because he's protecting something that is his. That's the parasite, and it's very difficult to see because it's not exclusive to any level of society, of intellectualism. It's no one is immune unless you can recognize it in yourself. You are bound to be the hostage of that parasite.
Now, we've got a few minutes left. I'd love to hear if you are planning future experimentation, if you have anything in the works.
Yes, we started an organization called Code of Reality, and in it we have a project called Project Veilbreak, which we're focusing on doing all of the stuff that you just mentioned. Part of it is currently doing, we're looking for funding, and we're having some of these conversations already. And slowly going to start executing every single part of these experiments and see where it goes.
Now, if there are folks that are already utilizing DMT, we're not condoning drug use or anything like that, but if there are folks who are interested in attempting this, how would you recommend they do so?
They can go to codeofreality.com, and we have a protocol there and all the kinds of lasers that you need. People asked us a while ago to make our own lasers, so we started making them. But I'll tell people right away, If your thing is to save a buck, that's definitely not your route. We have a list there of build your own, where we give you all the information about what you need to get from Amazon, which shouldn't cost you more than $50 with everything. And you can just make it one your own. Just make sure you never use anything above 5 milliwatts, preferably 1 milliwatt. All of it is there, so you don't need to remember any of this. But if anything above that, you can do cornea damage, even if you're just staring at a projection of it. So don't do anything above 5 milliwatts. It has to be diffracted, so a laser pointer is not going to work. Again, you don't have to remember you don't need to remember this. It's all on the website. And one very important caveat that we're now adding, and I will add it on the website as well, this is not for everyone. Even from the people that did DMT, used to it, always listen to your intuition and to the molecule itself. First of all, if there's a lot of things that feel they're going against the grain, like every time you try and procure some molecule, something happens all the time, that's a sign. You're not supposed to be doing this right now. If you're supposed to be doing something with the molecule and you prepped the laser and you're super excited about it, when you came back from the molecule, you didn't even remember the laser existed, that's a sign. That's it. You always listen to what's going on in the moment. They were very clear that we can bring people, look at the laser, do the thing. It's part of a deeper understanding that is happening. But they're always insisting, please pay attention to what we're saying. So always listen to what the molecule and your intuition is saying. If you feel that you're connected to source without any molecules at all, listen to that voice inside of you. Make sure that you understand where you stand in relationship to it. It is not for everyone. Just like being an astronaut is not for everyone, it's not for everyone. So make sure that you are aligned with that inner voice, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. So make sure that you're aligned with that.
Danny, thank you so much. This was fantastic. Definitely love to have you back on in the future. So much more we can get to. I'll have all your links in the description so everyone can easily access that. And until next time, everyone have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See you then. The nature of this experience seems to always be just beyond the reach of our science, technology, and consciousness collective.
There's layers upon layers upon layers.
It does add such an element of mystery to this place.
Why are we here?
We're getting closer to the truth now.
There's too many people experiencing profound interactions with conscious entities.
I'm focused on the non-human intelligence contact phenomenon in dreams. Dreams involve interactions with real entities.
People are waking up paralyzed. They're sensing or seeing something very evil in the room.
I have experienced sleep paralysis. Shadow people start to appear.
I was taken from my earliest memories by non-human alien entities. More and more people are wanting to talk about these things.
A ufologist would say, well, that's obviously an extraterrestrial. And a paranormal researcher would say, well, that's a ghost. Well, what if it's all of those things and none of those things? The entities, the intelligence that were just beyond our understanding.
There seems to be something a little extra that can take forms of anything.
I can't believe what I've seen, but it continues on a daily basis. We're definitely not alone. UFOs, UAPs, portals opening up.
I live with all this supernatural stuff. You kind of grow up with that around here. You see a lot of strange things. I don't like to talk about skinwalkers too much.
I had an experience with a skinwalker entity.
People, they would say they would transform into bears, into wolves. There's these bad things that occur. Ghosts, UFOs, and all types of things coming from somewhere.
Our beliefs, our emotions, and our fears all seem to heavily influence the nature of these experiences.
There is so much more that we just don't have time for in this busy, loud, noisy life that we lead.
All of this is planned. Everything is synchronicity.
There's so much more out there. We really are picking up such a small percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum.
The world is an amazing place.
It feels like we're gods in training.
Hello, friends. Have you tried what may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man? C60 PurplePower. My C60 story has led me to great health mentally and physically. It's helped me personally lose weight, have more energy, and fight aging in general. You can also get C60 for your pets. Our dogs love it. They may live forever. Go check out C60 for yourself. If you use the link right in the description, you're going to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. They have some incredible new products like gummies, oils, and much more.
I'm part of a member of the Ute tribe, and I'm a member of the Uinta band. And I live with all this supernatural stuff. I don't like to talk about skinwalkers too much. What are we talking about in the first place? It's shape-shifting. It does exist in other places in different variations, different regions, and over in the Great Lakes region they have people, they would say they would transform into bears, into wolves, into different things. Because back then we had no fast transportation, we didn't have any mode of communication that was very fast. So a lot of that came from there. They would be messengers, and they can run. They were pretty much indestructible. The way I was told is that there was a spirit or this power or the center of this. This power is hungry. If you want to equate it with something, it would be the devil. This power corrupts, but there's a price to pay for that. Now that we're seeing all this activity, you kind of grow up with that around here. You see a lot of strange things. It's just always been a contentious place. My elders, the old men would tell us, they said, it's because our people are living on this power points, on these, what they call vortexes, or what our people would say they're power points. If you see the swirls out in the petroglyphs, you'll see one going the one way and the other one going counterclockwise. They had a purpose and a reason why. And you'll see them to this day in other tribes. They'll use those in their ceremonies, and that's what they're for, the portals or doors. Because when we're taught, like in a Lakota way and a Dakota way, Wanagis and spirits, they know what doors are. They know what windows are. There's always an element of that, that there was a portal that exists, or portals. We would say these are the star people. These things are coming from obviously somewhere. It's somewhere far, but it's so close at the same time. These things, we never looked at them as being foreign, like alien. How we call them alien. See, we wouldn't call them alien. We call them star people. There's also the bad entities, and there's these bad things that occur. Natives throughout time, we adjusted to this land, we adjusted to environment, just as we would hunt and chase the buffalo and do all these things that we knew about the flow of this and that. We were also attentive to those things. Like in a Lakota tradition, they call them the Iktomi stories, or the trickster, ghosts, UFOs, and all types of things coming from somewhere.
He was a gentleman I knew well. He was out one day in this field near this irrigation ditch, and he had a UFO, for lack of a better word, swoop down and get so close to him that he had to jump into the water. And he said it was like he could feel the heat coming off of it. It was the brightest light he'd ever seen. And he jumped into the ditch, like to fully submerge himself in the water to not be burned. And when he came out, he had basically a full sunburn, and it took weeks to recover from, and he ended up dying of cancer. It happens. A lot of interesting stuff.